So thanks very much for coming. My name is David Quinn. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. That's it. And you can see the first slide of the presentation. Now you can see the second slide, I hope. That's it. My co-chair of the programme, Michael Connerty, had hoped to be with us today, but he had a medical emergency, a family emergency, so he couldn't make it today. So he sends his apologies. So the course title is, it's called DL931. It's a Masters of Arts in Animation. It's on level 9 of the Irish framework of qualifications, the NFQ. On the European framework, it's a level 7, a full masters. In terms of ECTS credits, it's 90 credits. That's 3 semesters. Okay, 60 credits is an academic year across Europe. Okay, so it's 90 credits, 3 semesters. Now, what will you do? Our Masters was envisaged from the get-go to be a quite broad and imaginatively inclusive offering. What the hell does that mean? It means that, even though this is specifically a Masters in animation and the projects are all animation related, we wanted to include a number of study options for the students. The 4 pathways that we broadly envisaged were practice-based, practice-led, scholarly, and animation teaching. Now, practice-based is generally a practical project like a film or whatever, or a package, a pre-production package for a larger project, whatever, something like that. Practice-led is usually, it's a component of practical work, but then it's often supplemented with some scholarly writing towards seminar papers for conferences, etc., etc., some academic work. Then we envisaged also a full scholarly option that some people would choose to, instead of do a practice project, maybe they did a film as part of their undergraduate program, but they would then want to do a full dissertation, or prepare towards a book on animation or something like that, but something scholarly, something research based, something that they would develop then into conference papers, etc., etc., something scholarly. And then finally we envisaged an animation teaching strand. Now, quite a number of the applicants who are coming to us are either working with us, or they're working in other colleges, they're working in secondary schools teaching animation, and some of them want to learn more about that process of teaching animation, what works, what doesn't work, how could they do it better, how could they learn more about it, etc., etc. So we envisaged building that in as a pathway as well. But again, the program is extremely flexible and it's capable of adaptation. It's much less prescriptive than existing offerings, either in Ireland or in the UK, and really, to be honest, across Europe as well. So it's a very exciting new program. This is a big chart, but basically what it is that no matter what, the 4 pathways are broadly outlined here in colours. Okay, so even though the different pathways are slightly differentiated in terms of the main work, you can see down at the bottom here, all pathways share certain things: reflective journals, the capstone modules, exhibition component, etc., etc. No matter what pathway you choose, everyone will be doing the same modules, but you'll be just doing different deliverables for the modules, and everyone will be focusing for the first module on a research methods for the creative arts module, and this is what we've discovered to be the transformative module. It's where you are given some readings about, scholarly readings about animation, you're involved in discussions with the class group, you've got presentations from the lecturers, and then you do a component of scholarly writing, and we're hoping then at the end of that module that all the students will have transformed their thinking about animation, about their practice, and about the project that they proposed as well. So we envisage always that the proposals that you come into the Masters with will change and modify as your experience grows through the Masters programme. So, what modules will we study? In semester one, everyone does a research methods for visual media and creative arts. It's a 20-credit module. You learn research methodologies, you learn scholarship, pedagogy. It's an opportunity to integrate research skills and associate knowledge and apply them to your chosen project. We'll come to the projects later. What are your personal projects? And then there's a 10-credit then early project module, where the applicant's project proposal is refined then with the master's program team, which are supervisors, co-supervisors, to become a learning agreement. And you do some early preparatory work on the project that you came in with. Then there's a collaborative module. It's a 10 credit. It's an opportunity either to work on your own project or to work on other projects, etc., etc. You can work with our undergraduate groups. You can work with groups from outside, etc., etc. And the critical thing is here that you kind of assume something of a leadership role, etc., etc., and you understand something about the power of working jointly with other people on animation projects, and there are many ways to do this. Some of our current students even have devised really kind of innovative ways to get this collaborative module done with great effect on their project and their practice. And then we're into then the major project module, 20 credits in semester 2. The student embarks on the main creative work for their chosen project. The learning agreement is refined and revised at the end of the module. And then into semester 3 then, the project completion module, where effectively you bring your chosen project to a successful completion. This is kind of a long module in semester 3. It's kind of 10 or 11 weeks long. And then finally then there's a smaller module, a capstone and exhibition module. It's 10 credits. You do a component of mapping the learning that you've engaged with over the masters. You identify gaps in the knowledge. You identify strategies for moving forward, and you answer some research questions directly related to the field that you've chosen. So it's a really interesting module. It's really important. Our external examiner kind of insisted that we would have an exhibition component where the students would be asked to explain to other applicants and to other students, what they're doing, what they did, and what they learned, what the masters was about. So it's an important module, in the scheme of learning between the undergraduate program and our master's program. So who can apply? Most of our applicants have already done a bachelor with honours, a level 8. Now there is an RPL, a recognition of prior learning process in our IDT, and we've been working with our lifelong learning officer even very recently on updating this RPL policy. We would also include, we'd envisage that a lot of our applicants would have done animation, but we also include related or sister programs in art and design areas, and we would also include postgraduate experience of working in the animation industry. Ireland is weird because a lot of people with BA honours, bachelor awards, can get jobs, and very good jobs, in the animation industry. But that's very unusual across Europe. Normally in Europe you've got to finish your masters at least before you're offered employment. But we would envisage that quite a number of people would come back later then from industry and say, look, I want to do a master's. Funnily enough, the biggest demand for this we've had so far is people coming from the US or Canada and saying to us that they would like to study a master's in animation. So again, if they've got industry experience, etc., etc., we will take that on board, and we will make sure that they qualify then, if we're happy that they'll qualify for the master's program. We also envisage learners coming from other discipline areas with a strong interest in relating their expertise to animation related. Like, what does this mean? Well, basically, we're very used to working with psychologists, ergonomicists, ecologists, etc., etc., and we would love people from those disciplines or disciplines like these to bring their expertise to bear on the specifics of animation practice. Technologists who are looking at AI, things like this, would be very interesting now in the next couple of years. Looking at the positives, but also looking at the negatives and the detrimental sides of AI, etc., etc. We'd like to assist people with that, but the focus would have to be on how it relates to animation and animation practice. So you could come in, with an imaginative proposal from a completely other discipline area, but you say that I'm an architect, but I want to design new spaces for people who work in animation. How do I do this? And this would be an interesting project for a master's. Now, the application forms in general are all available on through the website. There's a basic postgraduate study application form in IEDT, and again, this is what it looks like. It's a web form. It would take you about 5 minutes to fill out. It's your name, address, some details, etc., etc. What we do then is we send you then this form, okay? It's called a PG2 animation form, and basically it's some of the similar information, your name, etc., etc., your address, whatever. But the main focus of the PG2 anim form is to describe your project proposal, okay? So you would select my project will be practice-based or practice-led, animation scholarly, animation teaching, and then you would propose what you were going to propose to do, and we say to do this in 500 words, okay? What you hope to learn through your animation project, and what small component of animation knowledge might you hope to create or discover through your Masters in Animation project. Now, we also look for a 2-minute motivational video. We look for a portfolio or show reel if you have it, okay? The 2-minute motivational video can be just a straight to camera piece, or it can be it could be a piece of animation. We're not looking for anything elaborate, but it could be, but be imaginative with it. Somebody applied last year, and all they did was they just had a nice picture, very blurred, of people walking on the beach, etc., etc., and their voice just explaining the thing over it. So again, it was really cool, super cool piece of video. Got our attention, explained the projects, and that was really great. So the application project is you do a project proposal, and again, the project proposal we were always envisaging would be around 500 words. Now, we've modified this. We have been told to suggest that each applicant would propose 3 very short proposal ideas, 1 page maximum, okay, and can include images or video or animation links or whatever, okay. So again, if your 3 project proposals fit into 500 words, it would be ideal. That would really speed things up. They can be very different proposals, okay. We also ask for a portfolio of art or animation work. That is if you have animation work. If you don't have animation work, say you're coming from new media, or you're coming from some scholarly discipline, and you haven't done practical animation, etc., etc., but your study has been animation related, your portfolio then will be a portfolio of your writing, okay. It will be some conference papers you did, or some dissertations, or some essays you did, etc., etc. That's the portfolio. But a lot of our applicants do present a portfolio of art or animation work. The 2-minute motivational pitch video, and this explains the main points of your proposed projects, what you hope to learn, why you want to accomplish your project through IDT, etc. And it can be a straight to animation or straight to camera piece, or it can be animation, whatever. Now, why do we ask for 3 project ideas? Yes, some applicants will take the opportunity through this Masters to make a short film, okay, or at least this is what they'll be pitching with us, okay. And there are even some people on the call here who put in this pitch already, and they've had just, look, I want to make this film. But the problem with that is that it's kind of a more undergraduate approach to study, where you say, look, this is the idea I have. We ask for 3 short proposals from each applicant because we're looking for creative and imaginative thinking, okay, and we're looking for kind of a range of different ideas. We're looking for a desire to inquire, okay, or to dig deeper into animation as a subject, okay, and then all students, no matter what they pitch, will be completing the research methods for the creative arts module, and they will be required to do components of scholarly reading, research, writing and reflection. Now we put this in here because again, a lot of people do still come in and say, I want to make a film. That's fine, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be able to do some scholarly work, or you're not going to be asked to do some scholarly work. Everyone is going to be asked to do the research methods module, and you will be asked to do components of scholarly reading and some journal writing, etc., etc. It's not a big deal, but it's just that everyone is going to have to do it. Now, one of our students, Amber Kelly, put this. She was on a spotlight call with us earlier in the year, and she said this. She said, I feel like I just asked Amber the question. I said, did you find it challenging to do 3 project ideas rather than 1 when you were applying? And Amber just said, I feel like everyone who's going to apply for something like this will have a couple of ideas on the back burner. I'd like to do something about this, or I'd like to look at this, or this is going on in my life and I'd like to explore that visually. And she had 2 ideas she'd been tossing around for herself as personal projects, and she sat down and she expanded on them thematically, on what they were really rooted in and why she wanted to look at them. That was it, okay? And then she had another idea in the meanwhile, something that cropped up. So she said, it's like you're always thinking about this kind of things. It wasn't too difficult, I just needed to flesh them out to become something like a master's proposal. One of the things that our external examiner suggests to us as well is that applicants should not spend more than a week on this proposal, on these proposals. And basically, if you can't think of 3 kind of imaginative ideas, related to animation within a week, really kind of, you're possibly not at the right level for this, or you're just not ready for it. And that's fine, come back to us next year, etc. Now, what does an animation portfolio include? This is basically guidance from the undergraduate program. Applicants will present a portfolio of art or animation work. It doesn't have to be animation work. It can be. If you have it, show it, okay? A relevant show reel, if you have it, okay? If you don't have it, don't worry about it, okay? Don't start trying to generate a show reel, okay? It's ridiculous. Just say, look, this is my artwork. I don't have any animation, etc., etc. So what, If you've got any film or animation related work, show it. If you've got scholarly work, essays, etc., etc., especially if they're related to animation, or broadly the world of media, etc., etc., show that to us. And then digital or web-based work, it can be. We've got a lot of people putting in, a lot of web design work, etc., etc. If you feel it's relevant, put it in. Any work submitted as part of the application process should support the specific project proposals of applicants. Now, what does that mean? It means that it would be really cool if the 3 projects that you proposed were kind of growing out of something you'd already done, okay? That would be super cool. Look, I use this piece of software and these kind of creative approaches in this project here, but I want to do that further, I want to do that with 2 characters this time, and they're going to relate to each other, etc. Whatever, any presented work will be assessed by the program team as part of the application or RPL process. What does that mean? It means that we're very, very experienced at looking at portfolios, looking at show reels, and looking at the potential of different applicants. We're quite imaginative when it comes to picking things out of portfolios and show reels, identifying things that are really interesting. Even sometimes the applicant themselves doesn't identify that these things are interesting. We're very good at doing that, and then we're very good at suggestion then to the applicants, look, why don't you look at this, or why don't you try that, etc., etc. Okay, so we're quite imaginative, creative and open about this process. Okay, now application dates. July the 17th, that's the spotlight session today. August the 15th, Friday, it's a Friday, at 5 o'clock Irish time, okay, is the closing deadline for the Masters in Animation Programme applications for this year, okay. Remember, some of you will be ready next year to do this, that's no big deal, okay. Use this as information, get your portfolio, your show reel, whatever you need together for next year, etc., etc. But what we suggest always is, if you have anything that looks like an application, put it in now. The reason is you can get feedback for it now, okay? and that could prepare you even better for next year as well. Okay, then in early September the offers for DL931, the Master in Animation, will be issued, and then late September the faculty induction of new DL931 students. Each Masters in Animation student will engage with an IAGT Faculty of Film, Art and Creative Technologies postgraduate induction program before commencing their studies. It's a kind of a one-day thing usually, but the faculty decides sometime, it's a date usually towards the end of September. They bring everybody in, you meet people doing other masters programs, etc., and you all do a faculty induction together, and then the master starts then. Now, if you put in an application, and many of you have put in applications already, okay, you will receive written feedback, and you will receive criteria based scores on your application proposal. Okay, again, some of you have put in proposals already and are waiting for feedback, etc., etc. What's that about? Well, the way it worked was this: we had an early application date way back in March, and the early application date was really supposed to be for people from the outside of the EU who were looking for visas, etc., and would need a long time to get visas and finance together. So we were getting a lot of applications from Pakistan and from Iran and from India and from America, etc., and we tried, where there was kind of good reason to visa reasons and finance reasons especially, to give them an early response. Yes, we could see fit to offer you a post, etc., in the program, but it was only for a handful of candidates. Okay, now we do have a number of candidates who put in applications already, and what we're going to try and do, marketing and admissions have asked us if we could get some early notifications out to those people even before August. We might be in a position to do that as well, but again, it'll only be a handful. The bulk of the offers will be made in late August, early September, as we planned in the thing. Okay, in the original schedule. The other thing is, we always planned that there would be 8 students minimum on the master's program, and that there would be 12 students maximum. Now, we have a little bit of flexibility both ways. To be honest, it's a new program, and we'd prefer actually a smaller number of students. Like 6 would be ideal, because it means that we can really focus the tuition, and we can also trial and pilot the modules. But we've been piloting the modules this year very successfully. We've learned a huge amount through the piloting phase, and we're very confident that we can scale up now without any difficulty. Our head of faculty and our head of department are really on board with that scaling up, and we're getting great assistance from across the faculty. Okay, now I'm going to go through very quickly some of the current projects. Okay, so this one here is by Aileen, and basically Aileen was a published author. Okay, and Aileen, this was Aileen's first book. Aileen has a second book coming, etc., and Aileen's proposal was just quite simply, how do I translate my books for children into animation. Aileen is coming from an animation and graphics background, and a very strong publishing background. So again, this is all about translation of material from one medium to another, how to effectively do this, etc. Now, Aileen was proposing from the get-go to make a film, of course, and we were saying to her, whoa, wait a sec, you don't need to do this, okay? You can just spend the masters looking at the entire process. What would be good, what would be bad, how you could test things, how you could test different techniques, different software approaches, different pipeline approaches, etc. You could work with our undergraduates to do test scenes, etc. You don't need to do a film. Now, Aileen could still do a film, etc. We're not saying you can't do a film. If she wants to do it, you can do it, okay? But again, we're saying that, take your time on the masters, use it to develop not only a project, but to develop your working practice, okay? So again, that's one. Amber then Amber's initial idea was to explore the 5 stages of grief through experimental mediums, okay? But Amber's project really developed into this. Basically, it's called Waiting Room now, and it's a visual exploration into trauma and grief and living with terminal illness and its therapeutic possibilities. So it's, you know, it's a heavy subject, it's a serious subject, etc. And Amber is approaching it very experimentally, and the experimental approach is really, really interesting for us as animators. I mean, it's really very interesting, you know. And Amber has kind of gone into quite a bit of the science of this as well, you know. And looking at art and animation related to therapy, etc., etc. So it's a very interesting spin. It's not just going to be an animation project, it's also going to be a serious piece of learning. And again, Amber really feels confident that, you know, she is going to transform her thinking and her way of practicing in animation. And that's a really great transformation. Aoife then is one of our life-drawing teachers and design teachers in our undergraduate program, and Aoife wanted to really relate life drawing practice, life drawing as it's learned in, you know, in animation and in art, life drawing practice with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a hobby of hers, you know. But she was really looking at the two situations as being quite similar in certain respects, completely dissimilar. One is a martial art, one is an art practice, but she's trying to combine the two things, and she's doing some research with the animators in our undergraduate program. She's doing research with our BJJ colleagues as well in the Jiu-Jitsu group. So it's a really, really, really interesting project, you know. Jack then is another one of our lecturers. Jack's research topic was about authentic representations of the real in hand-drawn animation. And basically, Jack's thesis is basically about animated documentary uses a range of kind of these very rough experimental techniques to increase the feel of authenticity in the documentaries. Okay, so there's a lot of roughness in the way that material is treated visually, etc., etc. And Jack's whole idea is, could you then take those documentary techniques and use those documentary techniques to tell real fictional stories, you know, not documentary stories anymore, but you use documentary techniques to tell the fictional stories, you know. And Jack is exploring this, and it's a really interesting exploration. You know, he's determined also to make a film out of it but he's also determined to do some conference papers and present his findings. So you know, it's a very interesting project. Now, Ren then did a proposal. Ren's project was very much, I want to do this film, okay? And it was Anya and the Tiger. It was going to be, you know, Ren did a very, very successful undergraduate film. It did a lot of festivals. It, you know, was nominated for a lot of prizes, etc., etc. So Ren wanted to do something more elaborate. Now, the danger with this is that, you know, it's putting all the eggs in one basket. You know, it's kind of very objective focused. It's, I want to do a film and I want to finish a film, and it's got to be more elaborate than the other film and all that. So like, it's a different sort of metric for success or failure, indeed. You know, so again, it's a very ambitious project. You know, but again, you know, Ren would have to definitely dig into, you know, issues of representation, where the character designs are coming from, where the whole medium is coming from, etc., etc., and you know what the whole film would speak to, you know. So again, there's a lot of research to be done, even if a film was to be completed as part of this project. And then Kyle was coming to us from Athlone, another one of the animation projects in Ireland, and Kyle started with this project called Pebble Dash. Now, Kyle's project has since transformed into a project that's really looking at how images and imagery how data is stored, image data is stored by the state, by society, etc., and how that affects human beings across the board. So Kyle has done some really interesting research with the Irish Council for Civil Liberties, who are the kind of experts on kind of data retention by the police in Ireland and all the rest of it. So it's really grown from a very, in certain respects, quite a simple project, an interesting little project, but has become something that really has an awful lot of thinking behind it, an awful lot of deeper meaning, and this is exactly the kind of thing we want for any master's project, is that you come in with something simple, start simple, and then the next thing you're getting kind of deeper and deeper and deeper. And fundamentally, we want you to be, at the end of the master's project, confident in the fact that I know more about this subject than anyone else in this country. I own this space. Okay, so this is the kind of determination we have for our learners. Okay, so we'll have questions then. I'm going to